So you want to own a yacht, 120 feet of gel coat and teak, a sun deck, a jacuzzi, a crew in matching polos handing you a drink with a paper straw in it. The ocean is free. The wind is free. Anchoring in a turquoise bay off Capri costs exactly nothing, which makes the yacht one of the strangest financial objects ever invented. Because a yacht is the only asset on Earth that burns money faster when it does absolutely nothing. Park a car, it costs you a garage. Park a plane, you pay a hangar and a mechanic. Park a yacht, and you are paying a full-time crew, a marina, an insurer, a management company, a flag registry, a classification society, and a shipyard. Also, the boat can float in place and slowly dissolve in salt water. Salt water, by the way, is not neutral. It is actively trying to eat your investment 24 hours a day through a process called galvanic corrosion, which is chemistry's way of charging rent. That is the paradox. A machine engineered to sit still expensively, a status symbol whose primary economic function is subtraction. The brokers know exactly how this math works. The yards know. The crew agencies know. The only person at the marina who doesn't know is the man signing the purchase agreement, and by the time he learns, he's already famous at the fuel dock. Let's fix that. Before the wire transfer, not after. Start with the sticker. A respectable 40-meter yacht, new from a Dutch or Italian yard, runs somewhere between $20 and $30 million, depending on how much marble you insist on bolting to a moving object. And that's if you order sensibly. Custom builds run 3 to 4 years and have a documented habit of arriving late and over budget because you are essentially commissioning a floating building from artisans who bill by the hour and apologize by the month. Used on the brokerage market, maybe 8 to 15 million for something 10 years old. Sounds like a discount. It isn't. It's a warning label. Yachts come to market for a reason. And the reason is never that the owner ran out of fun. Divorce, debt, or a survey report someone would rather you didn't read. Speaking of which, before you wire anything, you'll commission a pre-purchase survey, hull inspection, engine teardown, oil analysis, thermal imaging, a diver under the waterline, and a haul out that costs more than most family vacations. Budget $50,000 to $100,000. Just to find out what's wrong with the thing you haven't bought yet. And something is always wrong. The only question is whether it's cosmetic or structural, and whether the seller knew. Then comes tax. Import the boat into the wrong jurisdiction and value-added tax lands on the full purchase price. 20% on $20 million. That's a $4 million rounding error. Which is why the back of every serious yacht wears the flag of a country the owner has never visited. Cayman Islands, Marshall Islands, Malta, not patriotism, arithmetic. Then the ownership structure, because nobody who can afford a yacht is naive enough to hold one in their own name. A holding company in one jurisdiction, managed from a second, flagged in a third, insured from a fourth. Each layer has lawyers. Each lawyer has invoices. You haven't left the dock. You've already built a small multinational whose only product is a boat. Now the part the brochure never mentions. Running costs. The industry has a shorthand for it, and every broker will whisper it to you like a secret handed down from the ancients. The 10% rule. Whatever the yacht cost, expect to spend 10% of that figure every single year, just keeping it alive. $20 million boat, $2 million a year, forever, not once, annually. Where does it go? Crew, first, and crew is the biggest line. A 40-meter yacht needs 8 or 9 people. Captain, chief engineer, chef, chief stewardess, second stewardess, bosun, deckhands. A good captain on a boat this size earns $10,000 to $15,000 a month. The engineer isn't far behind because he's the only person aboard who understands why the generators are angry. Add salaries, health insurance, flights home, uniforms, training certificates, and food, because under the Maritime Labor Convention, you are now legally an employer at sea with contracts, rest hour logs, and repatriation obligations. Call it $1 million a year before anyone touches a rope. Dockage next. A berth in Monaco during Grand Prix week or Porto Cervo in August can run several thousand euros per night. An annual berth in a decent Mediterranean marina, low six figures, and there's a waiting list because they built the coastline before they invented the billionaire. Then bunkering, which is what the industry calls buying fuel, because saying you spent $30,000 filling a tank sounds worse in plain English. A 40-meter displacement hull burns roughly 400 liters an hour at cruising speed. A single overnight run from Antibes to Sardinia is a mid-size sedan's worth of diesel, vaporized for the privilege of arriving somewhere with worse Wi-Fi. Insurance, 1 to 2% of hull value annually, and climbing, because underwriters have noticed that yachts keep catching fire in marinas. Maintenance constantly. The rule of thumb aboard is that a yacht is a hole in the water you throw money into, but the more precise version is that every system aboard exists in one of two states, recently serviced or about to fail. And then the one nobody budgets for, the special survey. Every 5 years, classification societies require the yacht to be hauled out, opened up, ultrasounded, and recertified for class. Owners call it the yard period. Accountants call it the year the boat costs double. Repainting the hull on a boat this size can run $1 million by itself, and it isn't vanity. Paint is the only thing standing between your steel hull and the ocean's patient chemistry. Skip it, and the ocean forecloses. At this point, someone at a dinner party will lean in and tell you the trick. Charter it out. Let the boat pay for itself. This is the most profitable sentence in yachting, and it is profitable exclusively for the people who say it to you. Here's the actual arithmetic. A 40-meter yacht might charter for 200,000 euros a week in high season. Impressive number. Now watch it shrink. The central agent who markets your boat takes a commission. The retail broker who brings the client takes another. Combined, 15 to 20% gone before the guests step aboard. The guests also pay something called the APA, the Advance Provisioning Allowance, typically 30% on top of the charter fee. Sounds like more money for you. It isn't. The APA covers their fuel, their food, their dockage, their jet ski gasoline, and their wine, which, at this tax bracket, is not a small line. Your $200,000 is now $160-something. And out of that, you're still paying the crew, who now also expect charter tips, plus the wear. Because charter guests treat your boat the way people treat rental cars, which is to say, honestly, interiors age in dog years under charter. And how many weeks will you actually book? The Mediterranean season is realistically 10 weeks long. The Caribbean season adds a winter window if you're willing to pay a crew to sail the boat 4,000 miles across the Atlantic twice a year, burning fuel the whole way to chase clients. A well-marketed, well-reviewed boat gets 8 to 12 charter weeks a year. An average boat gets 4. Run the numbers honestly, and a strong charter program offsets maybe 30 to 50% of annual running costs. It does not pay for the boat. It pays for some of the boat's habits. Meanwhile, the asset itself is depreciating like a rental car with a helipad. A yacht loses roughly 40 to 50% of its value in its first decade, and unlike a house, no one has ever fixed that with a renovation and a fresh coat of optimism. The market doesn't reward what you spent. It punishes what you delayed. Don't take my word for it. Take history's. Case 1. In 1988, Donald Trump bought the Nabila, Adnan Khashoggi's famous 86-meter Superyacht, the one that had played a Bond villain's lair in Never Say Never Again, for a reported $29 million. He renamed it the Trump Princess and gold-plated the publicity. 3 years later, his casino empire was drowning in debt. The banks were restructuring everything he owned, and the yacht went first. Sold in 1991 to Saudi Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, reportedly for around $20 million. The most famous dealmaker of the decade held the most famous yacht of the decade for 3 years, and walked away millions lighter, and that's before counting 3 years of crew, fuel, dockage, and maintenance on an 86-meter hull, which at that size runs well into 8 figures. The boat didn't care. Boats never do. Case 2. Vijay Mallya, the Indian liquor and airline billionaire, owned the Indian Empress, a 95-meter Oceanco reportedly built for over $90 million, with room for dozens of guests and a crew of around 40. When Kingfisher Airlines collapsed and the loans came due, the yacht sat in Malta while that crew went unpaid, over €1 million in back wages accumulating like barnacles. In 2018, a Maltese court had the vessel arrested and auctioned. It sold for around €35 million to cover the debts. 90+ million in, 35 million out, plus a decade of 10% years in between. Notice the pattern in both stories. When a fortune starts to sink, the yacht is always the first asset the creditors find, because it is the only asset with a transponder, a professional crew, and a berth reservation announcing exactly where it is. Offshore accounts hide. Paintings travel in crates. Yachts anchor in public with the owner's ego painted on the stern. So let's close the books. Purchase price, $20 million. Taxes, surveys, structure, and lawyers, call it another $1 million on the way in. 10 years of the 10% rule, $20 million more. Plus, 2 yard periods that both ran heavy add 3. Charter income, if you hustle, market aggressively, and accept strangers doing shots in your master suite. Claws back maybe 6. Then you sell a decade later into a buyer's market through a broker who takes 10% of whatever's left, and you clear 11. Total in $44 million. Total out 17. Net cost of ownership $27 million for 10 summers. Most owners use their boats 4 to 6 weeks a year, which works out to somewhere north of $50,000 for every single day actually spent aboard. Per day. That's the final balance sheet. A depreciating hull, plus a permanent payroll, plus saltwater's compound interest, minus whatever dignity the charter market leaves you, equals the most expensive way ever devised to read a book on a deck chair. The old line in yachting is that the 2 happiest days of an owner's life are the day he buys the boat and the day he sells it. The industry loves that joke. Of course it does. The industry gets paid on both days, and every single day in between.